All right, patch version 1.3 has just gone live with the new Northern Lords DLC for Crusader Kings 3. So in this video today, we're going to quickly go over that new patch version 1.3. I'm going to go over some of the big highlights, and we're just going to kind of move our way through these patch notes. But not everyone wants to listen to 13 pages of changes and fixes. So if this is your first time watching a patch note video on my channel, I like to upfront a kind of bullet pointed list of some of the big highlights, and then you can choose to watch whatever you'd like to from there. So here is the kind of hard and fast upfronted knowledge about patch 1.3. And you probably know a lot of this already, but there's probably some things you don't know. But with our new hairstyles, new icons and coat of arms were added for the Norse cultures. There are new special buildings, which we'll look at. They're in this forum post here, so it's really handy. There was an entirely reworked Dynasty Legacy system. So what you're going to find is all of the same legacies are there that were before, but now some additional bonuses. Blood, for the most part, is unchanged, but there's a slew of other ones added. In addition, winter has been added, poetry, dueling, especially if you are going down the military line, and we'll get to that in a little bit. AI is now better at creating duchies if they're counts, so they'll go ahead and actually take that action versus really waiting to do it, which is nice. Feudalizing, so if you're a tribal faction becoming feudal, it now only requires 70% of the innovations versus the entire lot. So that's 9 innovations versus what I think was 12 or 13. So a nice change there. The men-at-arms have been rebalanced as a whole, so there's no more instant teleporting. So they now will take time to gather and disband. So they will act much in the exact same way that levies do, just at a reduced time frame. So if you're using them to teleport around, it can no longer be done. Great and Lover's Pox chance has now been reduced across the board for all vassals, so no more of your orgies are going to happen. Holy orders, and if you're the patron namely, can now be recruited by you, but you just have to pay the liege that is currently renting out the holy order. You pay them the piety that it would normally cost. So for example, I'm the patron of a holy order, and normally it would cost me no piety to recruit them. Now you can recruit them from the liege that already has them recruited. You just pay that liege the piety cost. So it's a really nice quality of life change. Absolute control, the perk for overseer in the military branch, has been fixed and works properly for levies, and you can now pardon criminals for opinion. So that's just some of the hard and fast rules or features with patch version 1.3. That's 3 minutes of your time. You can now shut the video down if you so wish. If you want a big, huge explainer of all the things that have been added in the new Northern Lords DLC, you can find that video linked in the upper right corner right now. Go ahead and watch that massive video to get diving in. And if you are heading out and you have not yet picked up the Northern Lords DLC, please go ahead and use my link in the description below to the Nexus store. It gives you a Steam key, but it does a great bit to help the channel out. It supports me quite a lot. So thank you very much for watching if you're heading out. But let's go into the nitty gritty here, guys. Let's get all into those patch notes. So here are the new coat of arms that have been added in for a lot of the existing kingdoms and houses that are already in the game. So this is the new coat of arms and the new mottos. So really cool here that this really plays a lot of homage to some of the more important historical characters here, like Ivar shares Baldur's Justice. So a lot of really cool stuff in this, and a lot of really awesome additions here, right? Like you get the hammer, a whole bunch of awesome stuff. So I'm really stoked on these. Also some new faith icons as well that you can use when creating a new faith or reforming yours. So a nice bit of little quality of life improvements for the Norse factions. Here are some examples of new special buildings that have been added to Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. The full list is in the patch notes as it says, but you have the Golden Gate of, here we're going to click this, the Golden Gate of Kiev, the Houghton Fortress, and the Temple of Uppsala. And I know I apologize for mispronouncing especially those latter two. But you can see these things are pretty beefy, and you'll be able to use them, especially when you're forming the capital of the Rus. One of the new major decisions added with the DLC, the Golden Gate of Kiev has been added to Kiev, which is pretty sweet. Okay, we don't need to get bigger. Let's just go down. Also, if you were looking to host a cool bachelor party at TGI Fridays, you can now have a chin goatee. And that's disgusting. So that's an option there for you if you want to have it. You now have the new clear notifications button. By simply right-clicking, you can dismiss all notifications. That was previously a mod, no longer. You just have to right-click in the little sweep, little broom, and boom, they're all gone. Love it. It's probably one of the best things that's added in both the patch and the DLC. But baronies have been expanded in Scotland. So there's now more of them in the northern portions of Scotland, as you can see. So it's a lot more divided up. What was before, I think this was like 3. It was 1, 2, and 3 baronies. Now it's a little bit more divided up and there's more of them. You can really kind of, oh, actually, it looks here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you get a lot more spread in Scotland alone. The same thing here has happened in Iceland. Iceland is now up from previous 5 rather large baronies in 2 counties, where it was previously only, Iceland now has 9 baronies spread across 4 counties, up from the previous 5 baronies in 2 counties. I was going to say, I thought 9 was in there. So yeah, there you go. Iceland, we're playing through this on our live streams that are Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We're playing as Uhtred of Bebbanba, as the Last Kingdom show would make you believe is real. And then we also get another overhaul to another location in Sapmi, which I apologize for mispronouncing. But this will, it kind of goes hand in hand with the flavor pack and adds a lot of functionality. But this is mainly here increasing the duchy layout, increasing a lot of the baronies within. And that's been done to a lot of different places. We're just going to see this in Italy. We're going to see this in other portions of the map, just kind of overhauling the way it's all done. So here are the patch notes themselves. I've highlighted everything. And I actually got this this kind of methodology from One Proud Bavarian. So please go and check his channel out. I'm sure he did a really big deep dive on these patch notes as well. And it's always great to get 2 sets of information, because that way he might have got things that I missed or vice versa. So please go and check out One Proud Bavarian. But the way I do this is green is for what I think is a buff or a new addition. Cyan is just kind of like, oh, that's kind of nice. Or it's an explainer of a green. And then red is a nerf. So those are your 3 colors that I pretty much use. So we have winters coming. So the new winter has been added into the game. You've got 3 different types of winter: mild, normal, and harsh. And those will increase the supply cost basically for your units, and they will drain quicker. In harsh, though, it'll cause fatal casualties, and the defenders of a battle will get an advantage. So important to know. There is also a new Winter Soldier Commander trait that will help mitigate some of those new winter penalties. Men-at-Arms can now come with bonuses or penalties for fighting in normal or harsh winter. I just put this in red because it is something to be mindful of. A new personal combat system has been added, like I was saying, with the new duels, and this is something we've seen in the developer diary. But essentially, if you're a Norse Asatru character, you can do duels to anyone that you have an imprisonment right, I guess you could say, or imprisonment reason for across the map. As long as they're outside of your realm, you can challenge them to a duel. But if you have the Stalwart Leader perk in the Chivalry Focus tree, you can now duel your rivals. And winning and losing these duels adds stress to the loser and de-stresses the winner. Versus if you are doing a Norse Asatru duel or trial by combat is what it really is, then you can kill the person. This is just strictly for stress, which is nice. Added the poet trait, and we've gone over this in that in the video for the Northern Lords, but essentially this will allow you to woo people. You can bolster your liege. You can denigrate people with it. There's a lot of really cool stuff. You can even torture people with poetry. And if you are a Asatru, you actually have it as a virtue, which is pretty cool. Your skald, as it were. Enhance the hair and beard inheritance gene, so you can actually inherit straight, wavy, curly, or afro style hair, which is really, really cool, right? That actually passes down through your kids. Existing characters from save games made before 1.3 might get a new haircut or become bald, and old ruler designer DNA data will not have hair or beard. So that is worth noting. A new save will fix that. I shut off all of my mods and that fixed that, so I'm not sure what it is. But these things that we've covered already, all the new stuff that was just added. But for balance purposes, now you can see where it's going to get really spicy here. We have got the men-at-arms, special troops, and mercenaries now have travel time, and like levies have a penalty to disband re-raise during war. Travel time is based on the distance to the realm capital. This should effectively stop being able to teleport men-at-arms across the map. So this is a nerf if that's how you play the game. Personally, I think it's a great way to kind of reduce the gaminess of men-at-arms. I've only ever used it once and I kind of felt scummy doing it. So it's nice to see that this has been brought into the game, and it actually has like this little variance right there, right? Travel time is based on the distance to the realm capital versus like, okay, there's just a travel time. Like now we know exactly what causes it for men-at-arms, and here it is. Renowned cost of acquiring Dynasty Legacies has been overhauled. Instead of a linear progression, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, the cost is now dynamic. It should be easier to unlock your first few legacy perks, but significantly harder to unlock all legacies in the game, which I think is an amazing improvement and makes the Dynasty Legacies, it makes you actually use them a little bit more. I mean, I've played so many different campaigns, and I think I've really only invested 3 or 4 Dynasty Legacy points in each one of them. Like I never really get a chance to get a Dynasty Legacy off the ground. So this is a great way to do it, especially if you're not really focusing on creating a lot of different rulers in your dynasty. So that it's a nice quality of life improvement. All Dynasty perks have been rebalanced. Their effects should now be much more tangible and interesting. The yearly event pools have been restructured and a lot of triggers loosened or removed outright. In practice, this means you'll see more events when playing, roughly one random event from this pool every 4 years rather than every 5 or 6. This also means that some extremely rare events will now appear more frequently. Who knows, you too might experience the Leviathan like I did, which is awesome. The infirm trait events have been moved from yearly pulse to the health pulse. So what this means is all characters can now become infirm, and it's more likely to happen in your elderly characters. So that should mean that you should have a lot less of these 70 and 80-year-old gentlemen lasting for longs? That's not even a word. Long amount of time as rulers. They should kind of start to get infirm and die off a little bit quicker. Increased cost for sale of titles from 150 to 500 prestige, so that's a little bit trickier now, and increased cooldown on extort subjects from 2 to 5 years. Again, reducing some gaminess. It is a bit of a nerf, but I do kind of like it. Hosting parties now give much more relative progress for gaining Reveler trait than attending parties hosted by others. So it makes getting Reveler a little bit more genuine, rather than you just going to a ton of parties that if you have a lot of vassals, you will get invited to. Makes it a little bit personally challenging, I suppose. Reduced acceptance bonus on offer vassalization from wide difference in rank and rightful liege. And there's something that kind of swaps that later. We'll get to it in a patch note further down, but that is, it makes vassalization a little bit more difficult, but there's a different way that they've balanced that out, and I like it. We'll get to it in a bit. But reduced fascination from gain from learning from +2 to +1. So it makes your cultural innovation fascination a little bit slower, but it is nice now that tribal can get to feudal a lot easier because it's 30% easier, right? They don't have to get all 100% of those innovations now. So this should help to kind of balance out that that reduction in innovation gain and the reduction in innovation requirements to kind of balance those out. It's now possible to recruit children from prisons as long as they're not an heir to one of their liege's titles, which is nice. Again, this is the Lovers Pox and Great Pox should now be a lot lower of a chance to occur. Improve the candidate selection for Republican mayors that can be of the province culture as well as their liege's culture. Previously, it was only what the province was, so this is nice to see. As the patron of a holy order, you can now hire it even if it is already hired by someone else, except another player. You may, another personal player, like if you're playing multiplayer. You pay the full piety cost to the person who already has hired it, rather than the usual hiring it for free. So a nice balance in quality of life improvement there. Being more than 5,000 men above a supply limit now causes you to lose supply faster. Again, a little bit of gaminess reduced out of the game. I'm all for it. Buildings and holdings in the domain limit grace period are now disabled entirely. So a lot of people were still using the North Korean method just by completely blitzing it still. This has now been even further nerfed. Fixed absolute control having no effect whatsoever on levies, been fixed. Having a truce on someone now prevents you from raiding them. So again, this can be perceived as a nerf, but it is nice now that you if you have a truce with someone that you don't want to go to war with, which is now part of the Northern Lords DLC, where you can actually choose to make a truce with someone, not raid them, and they still give you money. So this prevents you from raiding them outright. You no longer disrupt your spymaster's scheming, which is nice here, if you're ordering a spymaster to spy on your liege's court and you are the liege's spymaster. So your disrupting of schemes won't affect that. Imprisoning and executing characters of no particular status, example lowborns, now yields much less tyranny. So that is unfortunate. I have personally done this a lot to try and buff up my dread to keep my vassals in line. I've even kept pools of prisoners when I know there's going to be a succession crisis, and this helps buff up my dread to make succession easier. So this is going to be a lot harder to deal with now. Siblings now inherit ahead of parents. I just don't know what that means, so I put it in cyan. The raid speed modifier now affects armies you command rather than armies you own, which I do understand what that means, but I've not really encountered that in this scope, but it is worth highlighting as a patch note in my opinion. The Witch Coven modifier now gives disease resistance rather than health, which is unfortunate, but being in a Witch Coven is still pretty advantageous, and I would definitely encourage it if you haven't gone through that yet. You can now disinherit people outside of your diplomatic range because sometimes your sons will go gallivanting about. You will no longer get stress from parents or siblings dying of old age when they're 65 or older, which is great because that would happen all the time. Like, oh, my brother died and he was my older brother and I'm 50 and he's 74. Like, I saw it coming. So it's nice now that you no longer get that stress unless they are your friend or lover. You still get that stress a little bit. AI rulers who form an alliance in the middle of a war now wait 1 month before calling their new ally to war, which is nice. And then feudalizing as a tribe no longer requires all tribal innovations. Now you only need 70%, 9 of all civic and military innovations. MaAs now invade immediately in 867 by default. The AI's willingness to white peace out of a long war now scales with how far in debt they are, which is lovely. You no longer get these really, really, really long protracted wars where you're winning, but they're like across the entire ocean and you can't get to their capital because they keep sending fleets at you. So this is nice, a nice way to kind of get out of those little protracted fights like that. The Estonian culture now starts with a longboats innovation, which is great. Gave Heston the adventurer trait made him a bit less vulnerable to old age, which is really good. We've got a top 5 Northern Lords campaign starts video coming out tomorrow. And if you haven't watched it, please go check out Party Elites. He just put up one today. We have some overlapping characters and almost a freakishly similar thumbnail, but please go and check out Party Elite. He just put that video up. Adjusted the starting event troop men-at-arms of some important rulers, gave some event troops where they were lacking entirely, and added a few to Lyon to stop Wessex gobbing them up all the time. Quite a nice quality of life improvement. Added a new stance for when the AI is considered desperate. And counter rating will now look at the current strength rather than the max strength when deciding if it has enough strength to fight raiders and vice versa. Discourage unit AI to switch to a new target closer by if it means heading away from the current target, which is really strong. This should mean that the AI should stay a little bit more on course, but it encouraged the AI to stick with a current target if being very close to it, and vice versa if that new target is passing very close to it as well. So it'll prioritize distance rather than just simply going, okay, I am going to just kind of switch targets randomly. It's going to go for one target unless there's a way better target very, very close. So it's a nice little swap around there. The AI is now better at supporting player units that lack the strength to siege, which is great, and told the AI that if it is a count and it is above its domain limit, it might be a really good idea to create a duchy. So I really like that little improvement as well. For the interface, we've got we've got quite a few big ones. It's now possible to dismiss all notifications. As we were talking about, you right-click that broom and boom, they're all gone. Updated the current situation widget with a fresh new coat of paint, so it looks a little bit nicer. Got a little, it's got some wall treatments on it. Nice new carpet, looks good. It's good shag. Hovering over the unit plate of a friendly unit now shows its full path. Great for seeing where your allies are going, which is great because there's too many times I just kind of follow around an ally. I have no idea where they're going. Players now receive a warning when their enemy in a war forms a new alliance. And again, that alliance member won't join for a month. Added a current situation item for hooks about to expire. It'll tell you when a hook expires in less than 3 months. And added a message that lets the employer know if their counselors leave because of marriage or title inheritance. Quite nice. Fixed a case where we should show an event chance higher than 100%. Yes, you're so good at your job that you can brag you've got a 173% chance of success. We all know 100% will just have to do. I just highlighted that because it's funny. Included counselors to increase opinion suggestion, even those who are unlanded. Opening the Dynasty tree now pans to the house you opened it from. It'll center on the house head, or if you remember the house, you. Split in half for your armies now only selects the original army, which is great. The domain view now tells you when a building or buildings will complete. The raise runestone decision is now a major decision, so you don't miss it when it's usable both with vanilla and with the Northern Lords version, which is great. For the art, replace anachronistic pineapple with historically accurate melon, which is hilarious. And we have a lot of localization changes, so please do look through those. Some big game content. I think this is that's pretty much that game content, and this next one are the last bits to go through. I did not cover bug fixes because I don't encounter a ton of bugs. If you are encountering a lot of bugs, please sweep through this whole thing. I'm going to be putting a link to this forum post in the description so you can take a look at it. But for the game content, all formerly inaccessible religious clothes and headgear are now accessible in the barbershop. You want to wear the Pope's hat and step pagan robes? Go right ahead. Norse houses now have access to a wider pool of mottos, focusing on their many gods, like we talked about a little bit ago, but deceitful characters can reference Loki, brave ones Thor, etc., which is awesome. Added a small interaction to pardon a subject's crime in exchange for opinion. Added a few new death reasons for berserkers to execute in battle, such as cleaving people in half or viciously dismembering them, whichever. A guardian might now get a hook on their ward should they be of a greedy, deceitful persuasion. So it should make choosing your guardians a little bit more cautious now. And you can now offer concubines and consorts to other characters. And I love that. I think that's really cool. So you also get, when offering vassalization to a feudal ruler, you may now offer a more lenient contract to improve their chance of accepting. So remember when we were talking about that patch note that said rightful liege is no longer part of how, it's reduced in offering vassalization. So this should help to kind of counter that. So again, when you offer vassalization, you can offer a lenient contract to them, a lenient feudal contract to make it an easier approach, which I'm all about. I think it's a really cool kind of, okay, rather than just kind of collect them all acceptance things, you can kind of manipulate their contract and make it work. Like, hey, if you're my vassal, I'll give you the ability to raise your own armies or stuff, so on and so forth. I can't think of the term off my head, like marching and stuff. So march orders or the march one. Yep, it's going to keep going on now. Change the Dior vassal modifier and the offer vassalization interaction to rightful vassal for balance and clarity. So again, playing into what we just talked about before and the one that we got earlier with a little bit of the nerf. But replaced Tengriism's Sky Burial's tenet with Warmonger, which is more accurate for the time period. Added a decision for independent Norse rulers to have their realm embrace local traditions. This is huge. If you're playing Reworked, though, wait until you've created the kingdom title of Novgorod before you embrace local traditions. Because this way, you can actually take the Swedish elective onto the kingdom of Novgorod, whereas otherwise you have to just kind of tussle through it. But what local traditions is, it includes both the culture and the religion of your local area. So your realm, as it were. So rather than doing one at a time at different intervals, it just does them both, and it just does it across the realm. You do your typical percentage of success per individual vassal and their opinion of you, and so on and so forth. So this is a real nice way to use the new Varangian adventure, move to a location, then embrace those local traditions if that's where you want to stay. I'm all for it. I think it's a really awesome quality of life improvement. Some user modding things have been done. I don't know anything about modding, so I have not covered this. But for databases, many important and significant holdings, such as London, Alexandria, or Baghdad, now start the game with additional buildings already constructed, which is quite cool. The Abbasids now have their capital in the historical capital of Samarra in 867, and the de jure capital of England is now set to Winchester in 867 and London in 1066, which is nice. Updated Ireland with new baronies and counties, updated a number of counties across Italy by adding additional baronies, increasing the average number of baronies per county and greatly reducing the number of 2 barony counties. It updated the county setup in Croatia and Serbia as well, updated the traits of Robert of Apulia and his son Bohemund. So a lot of those counties and baronies have been updated and swapped around, which is really good. We already talked about it with Iceland, and we talked about it with Sapmi, and we talked about it with Scotland already. So it's cool to see these being added and kind of tweaked as people kind of see fit or make suggestions to the developers with. So a lovely improvement there. But that as a whole covers patch version 1.3. This is actually way faster than I thought it would be. The first patch that we covered, 1.1, was like an hour-and-a-half video. So if you have any questions on any of this, please go ahead and leave a comment below. If there's certain bugs you're running into, please let it be known. Submit bug reports, go to the forums, submit it in comments or on Reddit. Let it be known to Paradox so they can try and fix those bugs. They are aware of the baldness happening. For me personally, like I said, I just uninstalled, I shut off my mods, booted the game back up, and everyone's hair returned. So, and I noticed it doesn't occur with new games, which the patch notes kind of state. So hopefully that helps you out. And like I've said before, if you have not yet picked up the Northern Lords DLC, please go ahead and choose the Nexus store in my description. It allows you to purchase the key through them. They give you a Steam key they get directly from the developer, which is awesome. And it goes a great way to supporting the channel. You can also sign up on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you so wish. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of fun action. But have a good one and take care.